Today we're going to be going over the installation of the Seat Concepts custom-made seat cover for the XE4 and the fast swap battery system. Your kit will either include a red striped or a blue striped seat cover. You come with a bag with some stickers and your plastic covering for your seat foam. You don't have to use this, but we like to use it. This is what your finished Seat Concepts custom seat cover should look like when it's done. We pulled it tight so it's nice and snug. You're not going to get any slipping on it. Some of the tools you may need is a Sharpie, razor knife, tape measure, and a hacksaw, table saw, or chop saw to cut the seat off. In this case, we're going to use a table saw. If you take your original seat and strip the seat cover off, this is basically what you should have. Your seat pan, your foam, all in one piece. Now we've pre-marked it. Right at this ridge on your seat pan is 3 inches to where we're going to cut. It's also 4 inches from the tip to this. Once you have your seat pan marked, you'll go ahead and either cut it with a hacksaw, a razor knife, table saw, or chop saw. You want this to be flat with or 90 degrees to your cut. So your cut's going to be 90 degrees to this part, not to the back part of the seat, because there's a curve in the seat. You want to cut it square here, so your seat's actually going to have a little bit of a pitch to it when you cut it. So we'll mark it a little bit better here so you can get an idea where we're going to cut. Measure twice, cut once. Because we want the seat to be 90 degrees at this angle when we cut it, we'll put it on a flat surface like this, and we'll put a square on the table. That way we can get a pretty good line. Where you want to cut it. You can do that on both sides if you're going to do this by hand. In our case, we're going to use a table saw. This is not the safest tool to use. Only use this if you're an experienced craftsman with a lot of time on a table saw. You do want to get the foam or the seat pan pinched between the blade and the fence. But we've done this several times, and it's the cleanest cutting way. You can use a chop saw, but you must hold down the material really well when you're doing that. Cut it super slow and use a nice sharp carbide tooth blade is the best to use. So we've measured 4 inches to this side of the blade, not to this side. It could actually be a little less than 4 inches, like 3 7/8. You can always take off a little bit more on a sander or shave it off by hand, but you don't want to overcut it and then have a big gap between the seat and the seat pad that attaches to the airbox cover. When the seat is cut properly, you'll have a really clean fit between the airbox cover, the seat pad, and the seat. Should be fairly snug. You might have about 1/8 of an inch or so of space so that the seat pad can open and close. Now that we've cut the tip of our seat pad and our seat pan off, you can see it was a nice clean cut on the table saw. You can see our magic marker line just got cut off. And when we flip it over, you'll see the 3-inch mark just is left. So that's how you should cut off your seat pan. The next step is to mark for the seat pin and the nut that holds the seat pin on. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure center between the dead center in the seat, and then we're going to measure exactly 1 inch up from the bottom. So right, I was just off a little bit. So right there, we're going to mark 1 inch. And make sure this is in the center approximately. Yep, that's dead center right there. So there's our center mark. We're going to drill a 6mm or 1/4 inch hole, but we give you a 6mm bolt that's 25mm long. This is the seat pin, which is going to go through the seat, and a seat nut. Now this seat nut is going to want to turn on the inside of the seat, so what we'll do is apply a little bit of goop. Don't want to get it in the threads, or you can epoxy it on there. We just normally apply such amount of goop, or we sometimes super glue it on the inside so that it doesn't spin when you tighten this down. We grabbed a 15/64 bit. We're going to drill through at our point here. Now that we have our hole for our bolt, you can peel back the foam. In this case, it's got a little bit of, it's been glued on here, so we're going to peel it back a bit. And get our bolt on there. So now that that's through there, you can see it's coming through. This nut will go on, and this nut doesn't take up much room in the foam. You're never going to feel that through the seat. Because the nut is inset into this plastic spacer, you may need to hold this with a pair of pliers as you tighten this bolt from the outside. We've applied a little bit of goop to keep it from spinning if you ever have to tighten this again. So you can see a little bit of goop on the outside edge. Don't want to get it on the threads. You could actually put some sealant on the top of this nut to keep it from corroding these two pieces together. We actually use nail polish a lot on areas like this. Keeps these two pieces from rusting together. I mentioned we use the word goop for that seat nut, but this is actually what we use, this E6000. This stuff works really good. It's super strong, dries pretty quickly. We use it a lot on a lot of different things, but this is what I was talking about when I said goop. Seat Concepts makes these custom seats for us. And this is by far one of the best quality seat covers we've ever used. Believe it or not, this seat cover has seen a year of riding on one of our race bikes. There's very little wear, just a touch bit on the side and a little bit of discoloring in the name. That seat cover almost looks brand new from when we put it on. Shout out goes to the quality of these seats, made in the USA too. Even if you're looking for a seat for a different bike, a Honda, Kawasaki, these are one of the best seat covers made, especially made in the United States. The next thing we're going to do is apply this plastic visqueen to our seat. This comes with the kit or your seat cover. It's way more plastic than you'll need, so we're going to cut this down. We are going to spray a little bit of contact cement onto the seat pad so it sticks while we're putting our seat cover on. So we're going to do that next. We've applied a super light coat of this spray adhesive. I believe you can get it at Ace or hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot. We're just going to stretch it over the seat cover like this. We're now going to put the seat cover on. We'll trim this off after the fact. You could trim it off now, but it's easier for us just to trim it off after. We might do some of it during the installation of the seat cover. In this case, we're going to be installing a red stripe seat cover. Go ahead and remove it from the bag. Come wrapped up. Here's your plastic with your stickers. What you'll need is some kind of staple gun. There are hand staplers. I guess you could do it by hand too, by just nailing them on. We use this little Arrow staple gun and these T50 1/4 inch staples. Super easy to use. I believe this is like $38 on Amazon or somewhere like that. Can't beat it. These are great. and when they die, we just get another one. We use it quite a bit for putting our seat covers on. Once you have the seat cover out, you will have to turn these rear and front corners out. It comes like this. This is the way they stitch it. You'll have to turn these inside out. You might have to work these corners out so they're completely out. My suggestion is to start with the back corner and get these two corners over the back first. I'll go on something like that. You can see it fits on there. I would pre-fit this whole thing. Make sure your seat pan is cut to the right length before starting to staple anything off. You know, get it centered before putting any staples in it. So we've got the front and the rear slipped over just on there. There's no staples in this. We kind of want to look down it and make sure that it's good and centered, that our lines come straight back, that the rear is lined up pretty good, and that the seam is below the top. You don't want the seam way up top. You can pull this back a little bit so that it's underneath or on the very edge. All right, so now we're going to start stapling this down and trimming it off where we need it. Once we've started stapling, before we're completely stapled off, want to make sure that the seat cover's pretty snug, that you're lined up really nicely, that it's not off to one side or the other. In this case, we're really good right now. Just gonna work it a little bit, make sure that it's all seated really well. There's no slippage in it. It's a pretty good start to it. We're gonna have to trim around these pieces here. I like to cut like a U shape out of these where this clips to the frame. We're going to cut a little U shape out of it so that it doesn't interfere with it. You don't have to cut much, maybe a ½ inch on both sides. And then we'll go ahead and staple the rest off, and then we can trim this off, the plastic and the rest of the vinyl we don't need, and finish it up. Just staple it off where it needs to be stapled off. So there you have it. There's the finished Seat Concepts custom seat cover for the XE4 conversion kit. That's the way it should look when it's done.